How does it feel to have another gym junkie like Kevin Durant?
And having a guy like KD out there, watching him work, seeing how hard he goes, I feel like it's kind of inspiring, you know what I mean?
What excites you about the build of this group that you're looking
Yeah, just the progression of a season I'm always excited about. You can see the potential in the team around this time. But it's on us to put in the work every single day to reach that full potential, and that's the exciting part of the journey.
The success of the Houston Rockets last season surprised and frankly caught a lot of people off guard across the NBA. Having a 52-30 record after seasons in the previous years, in 2021-22, they had a 20-62 record, which was worse than the Western Conference. In the 22-23 season, they had a 22-60 record, which was the second worst in the West that year. But then really things started to shift and change, where in the 2023-24 season, Ime Udoka took the helm as the Houston Rockets head coach, and the Houston Rockets saw a 19-game win increase. And then last year, the Rockets had a 12-game increase. So now with Kevin Durant joining the roster after a blockbuster trade in June happened with the Rockets sending Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the 10th overall pick, and other assets to the Phoenix Suns, acquiring a Kevin Durant, how scary and dangerous will this Houston Rockets team be? And by the title of this video, I think they will be the definition of that. And in this NBA season preview for the Houston Rockets, we're going to be talking about why the Houston Rockets are about to shock the NBA in this 2025-26 NBA season. Ime Udoka, being the head coach of this team, really brought a new identity and ferocity to this Rockets squad, and trading the likes of a Dylan Brooks, who was basically their defensive anchor the past couple of years, but really last season too as well, as you saw the Houston Rockets make it to the playoffs. That's going to take a hit a little bit, but with the Rockets acquiring players like Dorian Finney-Smith defensively, still having players on their team, because that trade didn't necessarily gut their young core at all, actually, besides the Jalen Green. They have players still like Atari Eason, depth-wise, Aaron Holiday. They even added a Josh Okogie. Jabari Smith Jr. took strides as the defender last year, but it's pretty obvious when we talk about the defensive end for the Houston Rockets, that's synonymous with Amen Thompson, who emerged as not only being the most athletic player in the league last year, but you can make the argument that behind Victor Wembanyama and Evan Mobley, that Amen Thompson was the best defender in the league last year, and that he's going to continue to be one of the best defensive players in the league going forward, as he's only 22 years old. When the Rockets and Ime Udoka and staff finally inserted Amen Thompson as a full-time starter last year in January of the 2024-25 season, this Rockets team overall took a huge leap. If you look at the defensive statistic for the Houston Rockets, they ranked as a 4th team in the NBA for the season in terms of a defensive rating, only behind teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder, who of course won the championship, the Magic, and the Clippers. The Rockets were right there at 4th, but from a percentile standpoint, Amen Thompson's block percentage ranked in the 97th percentile, steal percentage, same thing, 97th percentile, offensive rebound percentage 99th percentile, and defensive rebound percentage 99th percentile as well too. So just overall, his presence as a defender has created problems not only for opposing guards that he has defended, but really he can guard 1 to 5, and that's saying a lot at his 6'7" frame. And I think a lot of people recognize this as well too, with his age being still young, that he hasn't even remotely scratched the surface of what he can be overall as a player on both sides of the court. Well, that with him, Amen Thompson also, when he was inserted into the starting lineup last year, as he started 42 games, and just overall in his career so far, he's averaged 15.1 points per game, 9 rebounds, and almost 5 assists as a starter in his career. And even off of the bench last year, he was still a double-digit scorer, averaging 11.1 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, and 2.2 assists. I think really Amen Thompson is just going to continue to grow overall in his 3rd season as a playmaker. As for last year, in his 2nd season in its totality, he averaged 14.1 points per game, 8 rebounds, and essentially 4 assists, shooting 55% from the field. We all know the biggest thing that's really going to take his game to the next level is not really just the outside shot, but just him being a threat from the mid-range, having a respectable jumper. And when you look at the statistics though, his 3-point percentage actually isn't as bad as probably a lot of people would think, or if they haven't looked at it. He shot 27.5% from the 3 last year. It was horrid in his rookie year, as he shot 13.8%, but also he did miss the beginning of his rookie year due to a calf injury, so that played a role. But really, you saw Amen get more comfortable throughout the latter part of his rookie year, and then early last season, especially when the NBA Cup play was going on. That's where he really emerged. Him and Tari Eason emerged as defensive pests, which Houston Rockets fans and people in the NBA community trademarked them as the Terror Twins. That was on full display, but Amen Thompson even further that throughout the year, as he was also able to stay healthy, and he made 1st team all defense in his 2nd season, which certainly is unprecedented to say the least. If Amen can just really be a respectable shooter from the mid-range this year, and make outside shots when necessary, that'll really command more from the defense and make opposing defenses more honest, as they'll already have to deal with Kevin Durant, who we'll elaborate on, because we can't take for granted the addition and impact that he's going to make make on this roster. But I really want to further in on Alperen Şengün, who had a career season last year in his 2024-25 campaign, as he averaged a double-double, averaging 19 points per game, 10 rebounds, and essentially 5 assists, shooting nearly 50% from the field and only 23% from 3, but he took them more. And overall, I think that if Şengün, I mean, you want him to play inside out more so and knock the occasional 3 down, but even adding that shot to his game, I mean, that'll make things even more potent, similarly to an Amen Thompson. And for Alp, I think it's going to be really, the Kevin Durant addition just works wonders for his playmaking. I mean, I know it's only preseason, but you saw that on full display in that matchup against the Jazz when Kevin Durant made his preseason debut for the Houston Rockets. Alperen Şengün had 13 assists in that matchup. Kevin Durant shot a true percentage of 82% from the field. Alperen Şengün shot almost a 70% true shooting percentage, and Amen Thompson shot nearly a 62% true shooting percentage. So you can coin them definitely being the big 3 of this roster for sure, but Kevin Durant's presence on them is just gonna not only sharpen Amen Thompson, Alperen Şengün, but even a Jabari Smith Jr. too, who they extended this offseason to a 5-year extension worth up to $122 million. And some people definitely question the Rockets giving this extension to Jabari Smith Jr., but honestly, when you look at the AAV, that the average value per year, it actually is kind of a great bargain for the Houston Rockets. First of all, Jabari Smith Jr. has another year on his rookie contract, so this deal doesn't kick in until the 26-27 season. But 5 years over $122 million is only essentially $24.5 million per year. So that works out perfectly for the Houston Rockets from a salary cap perspective, especially as the salary cap will only continue to go up, and you know, you have these second apron and first apron type of rules now in the NBA. It just complements them. And the conversation around Jabari Smith Jr. since being in the league and drafted 3rd overall in the 2022 NBA draft is that he hasn't lived up to the hype so far, and that's valid. That actually is true in a lot of ways, but I wouldn't go as far as saying that he's a bust, because he's contributed to the Rockets and shown flashes for sure. But Kevin Durant being on his team, I think that that's just going to help empower him to really transform his overall game. Am I saying that he's going to turn into a Kevin Durant type of player? No, but I think that only helps him from just being a person who the past couple of years has only been, you know, like a stretch 4 at times, to maybe being more comfortable facing up to an extent. Because the last couple of years, as we know, I'm talking about that conversation of not living up to the hype. Last season, he averaged only 12.2 points per game and 7 rebounds. His second year, averaged essentially 14 points per game and 8 rebounds, and rookie year averaged 13 points and 7 rebounds. So he's essentially been like a 12, 13, 14 points per game and 7 rebounds per game type of player so far in his career. I think with less pressure on him and actually a reliable offensive creator with Kevin Durant on the squad, it's going to only improve him and provide more opportunities for him to be more efficient. You look at him from a 3-point perspective throughout his career, he only shot 30.7% from the 3-point line in his rookie season, but he's only improved since being in the league. In his second season, he shot 36.3% from 3, and last year it dipped down very narrowly to 35.4, but he's shooting them at a high volume, shooting essentially 5 3-pointers per game too. So I think Jabari Smith Jr., I mean, he's going to be another player that'll be impacted a lot on this roster by a Kevin Durant. And when you talk about those 3 players in Alperen Şengün, Amen Thompson, and Jabari Smith Jr., those are 3 of your first-round picks from the previous 5 drafts, with Alperen Şengün being drafted in the first round of the 2021 draft, Jabari Smith Jr. being drafted 3rd overall in the 2022 draft, and with Amen Thompson being drafted 4th overall in the 2023 NBA draft. But before I get further on into this NBA season preview for the Houston Rockets, make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications. Follow me on Instagram/Twitter and X at SwaggyRuss, and TikTok at SwaggyRuss02 for shorts, reels, content, all things to that nature too as well. Also utilize that new hype button that is on YouTube now. It only helps. It's a new feature, so let's get that going for sure. But stay tuned for a lot more NBA season previews that we're having. The season is getting so close to being here. It's a beautiful time. After this Houston Rockets preview video, we also have one previewing the Cleveland Cavaliers, and also stay tuned for some more contenders that I'll be talking about too ahead of this NBA season as well. But with all that being said though, let's talk about why the Houston Rockets are about to shock the NBA in this 2025-26 NBA season. So in the intro, I wanted to highlight some of the young core for the Houston Rockets, and I'll expand more on their young core because we have to talk about a Reed Shepherd for sure too, because this year is going to be really foundational with Fred VanVleet being out and injured. That's a great opportunity for him to show his growth from his rookie year, not getting a lot of playing time, question marks about him defensively being on the court, things of that nature too, to show that he can hold up not only as a defender but be a playmaker and create. But we'll talk about Reed a little bit more later. With Kevin Durant now being added to this roster, I think it can potentially take this team to a new level. You saw against the Golden State Warriors in the first round last year, their offense was just overall simplistic, basic, and unable to be efficient in a half court. And I don't want to dump on Jalen Green at all because, you know, well, how do I say this? Was a solid young player in his time in Houston, but I think overall he didn't live up to his number 2 overall draft status, especially being compared with the likes of a Cade Cunningham in his class, who we saw what he did with the Detroit Pistons last year, helping revitalize that team. But Jalen Green as a primary scorer last year in the playoffs for Houston, yeah, that was something, and it did not work out at all. Overall, he averaged 13.3 points per game, 5 rebounds, and a little under 3 assists, and the Warriors were able to take him out of games. Outside of that Game 2 matchup where the Houston Rockets won and he had 38 points, shooting 52% from the field and 44% from 3, it was absolutely asinine how he played. In Game 1 before that, Game 2, that Game 2 performance happened, you can make the argument because of a Jimmy Butler had got injured, but in Game 1, he had 7 points. Game 3, 9 points. Game 4, 8 points. Game 5, 11 points. Game 6, 12 points. Game 7, 8 points. That's not cutting it. And I know that some people, I remember after this Houston Rockets series happened, losing to the Golden State Warriors in 7 games, some people had the perspective, oh, this is their first time in the playoffs as a young core. Let them grow, let them develop. But Jalen Green has shown overall in his career to be a volume scorer who's very inefficient anyways. And the argument not trading for KD is that he's older, stuff like that too. But how Jalen Green performed and just bringing that same roster running it back, you weren't going to do more than what you did last year, honestly. And, you know, you want Amen Thompson, who I think is going to continue to improve to do that, and with Alfred Sengun. But I believe if they would have brought back Jalen Green, that wouldn't have been a great thing to do. And the Rockets front office and general manager Rafael Stone agree with that, making a move for Kevin Durant, who has averaged 25 points per game for 18 consecutive seasons. And he's also shot over 50% from the field in 14 straight seasons too. So that's a far dichotomy and difference between Kevin Durant and Jalen Green, and no one's debating that. At least no one should. He just turned 37 years old, which I know maybe isn't ideal at all for the timeline that the Houston Rockets are with an Alfred Sengun, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Reed Shepard, Jabari Smith Jr. But if anything, Kevin Durant being on the team to really help show his experience, him being an all-time great scorer, can help further develop these players to learn how to win at a high level and win correctly. Because with Ime Udoka now being the head coach, they've certainly took strides to have a winning culture. But Kevin Durant is still, in my eyes, a top 10 player in the league who is going to help things shift for this Houston Rockets team as long as he can stay healthy, and that's a huge thing to talk about there. KD played 62 games last year and 75 in the 23-24 season, so that's not necessarily terrible, I would say, at all. Actually, especially at 23-24, he only missed 7 games. I mean, that's pretty amazing, especially being at the age of 35 at the time too. If you can get Kevin Durant playing anywhere, in my opinion, from around 55 to 75 games played area this season, I think that's an absolute win for this roster, because you want to be able to make sure that he's healthy and fresh and ready to go for the playoffs, so the Houston Rockets can do things that this team hasn't done in a while. And with that being said, in terms of talking about things that they haven't done in a while, the bar for this team should be conference finals. I think that's just realistic and the obvious thing. Yes, there's teams like obviously the Oklahoma City Thunder, who just won the championship, won 68 games last year in the 24-25 season. They're bringing back all of their roster, and they're for sure the title favorites. But I believe that this team can hang in there with them, not only from a competitive standpoint, but really also when you look at the rest of the Western Conference contenders. The Denver Nuggets, I believe that the Rockets can hang with them and arguably beat them. The Los Angeles Lakers, who have Luka Doncic finally for a full season and who's looking more lean as well too. Luka Doncic alongside of Devin Booker, those are my favorite players too. So I believe that Luka is going to resurge this year, but I believe the Rockets have enough to beat them, especially with LeBron, who's starting the season off hurt. And there's been a lot of question marks about him staying long term or something like that, or when he's retiring and stuff like that too. But regardless of that, the Lakers, they'll be a team to certainly look at, I would say at least. But I believe the Rockets can compete and beat them as well too. The Minnesota Timberwolves, who have made the conference finals the past 2 seasons, same type of ideology and deal with them. The Mavericks, who when fully healthy, they do have a squad having Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, rookie Cooper Flag now, players like a Derek Lively, a very deep team. But like I talked about with the Mavericks, it's when healthy with them, because you know how that goes. The Clippers, the Spurs also, watch out for them making the jump this year in terms of being a playoff contender. But all those teams in the West, man, the Rockets are on their level, and I believe that they're not too far behind OKC. And that's probably a controversial thing to say, but I'm here for the smoke if you want to talk about it in the comments down below for sure. But this Rockets team with Kevin Durant, I believe they're going to continue to be better. And to me, it's coaching that makes a huge difference for this Rockets team. I mean, you saw what they did under Steven Silas. I talked about in the intro, 2 consecutive seasons of only having 22 wins. That was putrid in the 2020-21 season. They only had 17 wins. They've came a long way for sure. But Udoka is really going to put this team in great positions to play at a high level. And if even at times they're struggling offensively, I believe that their defense is going to be the biggest complement to their offense. We saw that at a high level last year. As I mentioned, they had the 4th ranked defensive rating for the 24-25 season, but also look at another interesting, I guess, statistic, but also just fact about the Rockets on their squad this year is that outside of their guards, 90% of the roster has a 7-foot wingspan. Amen Thompson having a 7-foot wingspan. Dorian Finley-Smith, same with a 7-foot wingspan. Alfred Şengün, 7-foot. Jabari Smith Jr., 7'1" wingspan. Jeff Green, 7'1". Tari Eason, 7'2". Steven Adams, 7'5". Clint Capella, 7'5", and Kevin Durant as well with a 7'5" wingspan. And why do I bring that up? I say that to say if things aren't going right, the Rockets are going to continue to hang their hats on defense for sure, and they're going to get out and run as well. They ranked 8th overall last year in terms of fast break points per game. That's something that they certainly want to do, but now with Kevin Durant being on the team too, that improves their half-court dynamic as well too, to be able to score in many different ways and different looks in the overall depth of this roster. That leads me to talking about the Houston Rockets' potential starting lineup for this season, where they have Amen Thompson at the point, Reed Sheppard at the 2, Alfred Şengün, of course, at the center position, KD at the 4, and Jabari Smith Jr. at the 3. And I believe talking about Reed Sheppard is very paramount right now because he can be the reason why this roster becomes even more of a threat, or in many ways too, he can be a liability at times too, and it's very important for him this year to further develop because just like I mentioned, Jabari Smith Jr. was a 3rd overall pick in his draft in 2022. Reed Sheppard was just a 3rd pick in the 2024 draft last year, and I know that draft wasn't necessarily the strongest, didn't have a generational type player, but when you draft a player at that level, you see Reed Sheppard in his freshman year at Kentucky shooting 50% from the 3-point line, that nature as well too. You expect some playmaking and scoring ability for sure. And for the Rockets, if they are able to have a fraction of that or a complementary portion of that to this offense and to this team overall, they're going to continue to be more of a threat and be a complete team. With this Fred VanVleet injury, I can't stress it enough. The timing of this injury was so untimely. Happening in September, ramping up workouts, things of that nature right before training camp, and to tear his ACL right before the season, a month before the season starting, that just sucks for the Rockets. But if anything, you can use it as positivity for this team to improve from within and become even more of a juggernaut potentially with this roster and Reed Sheppard. And I think it's pointless to compare Fred VanVleet to Reed Sheppard because they're 2 different players. Fred VanVleet, he is a floor general, but also he can be utilized as a combo guard. With a Reed Sheppard, I'd argue that he's more so of a combo guard, but he is also only 6'2", 6'3" in that area, so naturally he will be slided at a point guard type of frame, but I believe Amen Thompson is going to handle a lot of the ball handling responsibility also, along with Kevin Durant and Alfred Şengün. But Fred getting injured does suck for them. Fred averaged nearly 19 points per game, 4.5 assists and 4 rebounds in that playoff series against the Warriors. Hit some timely shots in those matchups against the Warriors, and had a great 3-game stretch where in game 4 he had 25 points, game 5 he had 26 points, in game 6 he had 29 points. But now with Fred not being there, it's a prime opportunity for Reed Sheppard to show how much he has developed as an overall player, to be efficient and to be a key contributor to this roster. With Reed Sheppard only playing 52 games last year due to really mostly DNPs and him just playing in garbage time, it's really hard to measure his rookie season, and really honestly I would say to flush it down the toilet because he really didn't get a lot of opportunities to play because of players like a Jalen Green starting already, Fred VanVleet being in the lineup, and even when he was injured, Reed still didn't get the most playing time. But there were some solid performances that Reed had, albeit though, for example against the Lakers where he scored 20 points and made 6 out of his 10 threes. That was right before playoff time where some people were sitting and things of that nature as well. And then Reed Sheppard had a 25-point performance as well against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Those were good flashes that he has, and I think that people recognize the type of shooting threat that he can be. You saw it in the Summer League before his rookie year last year in 2024. In 2025, in the Summer League at times you saw but some inefficiency, but we're not about to go on a tangent and measure Reed Sheppard in terms of a Summer League standpoint because that's really, when that's just straight for development for players. But Reed Sheppard, his performance this year is going to be very crucial to this Houston Rockets team because you can make the argument that the Rockets still have a lot of assets from a draft pick standpoint that they can utilize. And for example, if by the trade deadline Reed isn't playing at a high level and some of those players that you recently signed, like a Clint Capella for example too, they're eligible to be traded, they could look to package a Reed, a Clint Capella, some of those draft picks to try to get a solid player offensively and a playmaker to help further along this roster to be even further more championship contenders if things aren't going right. But ideally for the Houston Rockets though, you want your second year guard that you took 3rd overall in the 2024 NBA draft to be a foundational piece of your young core, to be scoring and being efficient at a high level and being overall boosted by the presence of a Kevin Durant being on the floor. And I think that's a really important thing to highlight and note because Reed Sheppard is an important player for the Houston Rockets this year in terms of what they can be and also in terms of what they can't be. And if if they will be limited. A lot of people may use that LeBron meme claiming that the Houston Rockets are going to shock the NBA, but I for real mean it though. This team can be very scary. Their defense alone, like I talked about ad nauseum earlier, it can be very suffocating for opposing offenses. And I'm not directly comparing them to the type of defensive performances that the Oklahoma City Thunder had last year, but the Houston Rockets weren't necessarily too far off in terms of from a total defensive perspective. This team's identity is on that, on physicality and overall being dogs. And for Amen Thompson, he's more of a quiet player, but you saw at times too with that little dust up that he had with a Tyler Hero when they played against the Miami Heat, and then proceeded to outplaying him the second time they played the Heat. Atari Eason, who talked a lot of trash to the Warriors in the playoff series too, and also before the playoffs as well, after they beat them in the NBA Cup and things to that nature. This Houston Rockets team isn't scared to fight and wants to smoke for sure too. But for me though, them shocking the NBA looks like them winning the championship and making the finals this year. And I'm not ready to say that as well too, because if you check out my first NBA season preview for this upcoming season, I talked about the Oklahoma City Thunder, where I still would put them as a title favorites and as a favorites in the Western Conference. But my whole retort to that as well, saying that the Houston Rockets, they can make it far and they could potentially win this year, is probably the most overused take that we've heard the past few years, that there hasn't been a repeat champion since the Golden State Warriors in the 2017 and 18 seasons. And yes, this Oklahoma City Thunder team might be the best overall team since then, since those teams won, but I don't necessarily view them in the same type of light as the Golden State Warriors in terms of having that level of a dynasty. I believe that they'll win multiple championships with a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, players to that nature with that core, but I don't view them as the same level. And everyone swore that the Celtics were favorites to win and repeat last year too, and we saw that happen. Unfortunately, injuries are a part of the game. The Houston Rockets can attest to that with Fred VanVleet being out, which sucks as well because you want your point guard to be on the team, but I'll also be real about it from a contract standpoint as well too. I see he agreed to a 2-year, $50 million contract extension after this 25-26 season, which also isn't bad, by the way, similarly to Jabari Smith Jr.'s contract. But the reality of bringing that up is that injuries are a part of the game, so you can't predict what's going to happen throughout this NBA season. I say that being an advocate for the Houston Rockets, saying that no one at all following the NBA should be shocked at all if this team has real success, if this team is a true championship contender, and shoot, if this team wins its third NBA championship in franchise history in the 25-26 season, because it's possible. And if not this year, who's to say that it couldn't happen in the 26-27 season? This Houston Rockets team is building something that'll sustain for a long time, and I think that a safe prediction would be that Ime Udoka, as the head coach of the Houston Rockets, will lead this Houston Rockets to an NBA championship. Players like an Amen Thompson and Alfred Şengün being at the center of that, and they can potentially win one as well with Kevin Durant in the KD era. But with that being said though, guys, let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. Do y'all agree with me saying that the Houston Rockets are about to shock the NBA? Do y'all agree somewhat saying that they can potentially shock the NBA, that they'll be a great team, one of the best teams in the league, but we should slow down in terms of them winning a championship, things of that nature too? Or do y'all think I'm just completely out of whack, and do y'all not see the Rockets being a scary threat at all this year? Y'all let me know in the comments down below. And if y'all don't think they're actually a threat, I'm not gonna lie, y'all just must have a disdain for the Rockets, because anyone with an eye sees the potential of this team for sure. But like I said, y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments down below, because this is about to be a great NBA season, and we're gonna see off the jump how this team plays against a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, as they'll be there on banner night on October 21st for the NBA season opener. So that's gonna be compelling for sure. But yeah, like I said, a lot more NBA season previews coming on the way. I'm only doing the top contenders, guys. No disrespect, but I'm not about to do previews on teams like the Hornets when LaMelo Ball misses 1 million games in 3 years, or the Pelicans, things of that nature too. I just think it's very redundant and it's not necessary, but I'm gonna do it on the top contenders, so y'all stay tuned for that for sure, because we have a lot of heat and content on the way, as well with weekly series that we're already doing, like my NFL weekly recaps and also power rankings video. So stay tuned for that sure as well, from the tons of content that we're having too. And also with the Houston Rockets and ESPN Houston, I'll be covering games with them throughout the year as well. So a lot of exclusive content from an NBA perspective coming on the channel too, so y'all stay tuned as well, guys. But yeah, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and X at SwaggyRuss, and TikTok at SwaggyRuss02. All things to that nature, guys. Y'all keep being blessed and being legendary. I am for sure always grateful for y'all, and know that you are loved, you are chosen by God. God created you with a purpose. You're here for a reason, knowingly, unknowingly, and make sure that you lead others to Jesus in all that you do, guys. He loves you, and I'm here for y'all always, guys. So y'all just keep being blessed. Y'all are awesome. Y'all are legendary. Y'all have a good one. Peace.